gonna go ahead and snap. If we're gonna pull it, it may not have been the right call. Because if he pops Nova, that's gonna be, he's gonna win this lane. 1, 2. He's gonna at least tie this lane. I may have lost. So if he is gonna Nova it, this is the best call. If not, Scarlet Witch and actually. So let's do armor. We have priority. So we're gonna drop armor. We're gonna save 3 energy to buff Sunspot, but this armor is gonna make it that even if he wants to destroy his Nova, he's not gonna be able to. Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another Marvel Snap video. What this deck is geared around, I'm sure you can tell, is 1-drop cards. So just getting as many drops out there onto the board as you can. And you can tell, I did forego putting Squirrel Girl in this deck. Typically it would be a decent card, but one of the hot locations right now, or the hot location, is, if we can get it over there, is Atlantis. So Atlantis, if you only have 1 card here, it has +5 power. So Squirrel Girl makes that really, really difficult to navigate. And so I ended up removing Squirrel Girl. I put Hawkeye in, which I'm not a huge fan of Hawkeye. It's just, to get the full value, you have to make a really transparent play. And it's just not, overall, I don't feel like it is a good value for a 1-drop card. But so this deck, you are wanting as many 1-drops as you can pack in here, as many high quality 1-drops. So for me, I don't feel like Angel is that great of a card. You don't, like, maybe on occasion you're going to get an Electra pull where it's going to pull Angel out for you, but honestly it's not that big of a deal to have 1 additional 1-drop. I don't think that's going to win the game for you, as compared to like a Sunspot where it's getting buffed every single time or every single turn, or a Korg where it sends a rock into their deck to potentially disrupt their draw mechanics or their draw abilities. Same thing with Mantis, where you're drawing cards from their deck and making it really hard for them to do the things that they want to do. And so with this deck, you want to focus around 1-drop cards being buffed by Kazar. And being that this is such a low mana deck, you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to fill up just about every location. You may have 1 or 2 slots free, but in addition to that, we have Chavez that is going to be drawn every single time on turn 6, unless it gets destroyed by your opponent. But it's going to be drawn on turn 6, so you can guarantee that you're going to get a pretty decent value turn 6. And you can always withhold Chavez if you want to buff Sunspot a little bit further, or if you have another card in hand that might be just a little bit better, so like an Electra to on a Wonderworld to take out one of their 1-drop cards and swing that one in your favor, so you get that +100 boost, or a couple of fun little things like that. But overall, this deck is, I wouldn't say this is a tier 1. I don't think this is going to compete with your collector decks, your Nova decks, your dinosaur decks, your Moon Girl decks. But I think this is a fun change of pace. Kind of like I was running a Jubilee deck for a while, which will it plays the top card on your deck. Not Kazar. It just plays the top card on your deck, which is really good for like Chavez. With the way Chavez works, it's really, really good and gets a lot of value out of it. But again, it's very swingy. Sometimes you're going to have some really great turns. Other times with Jubilee, it's going to be, you're going to top deck a 2-cost card, and so you just spent 4 mana on essentially the stats of a 2-cost card. So it can swing either way in your direction, but this one kind of similar to that. You have some really big games where you shouldn't win, but you are able to kind of squeeze out the win with a Kazar or a Chavez or a well-placed Sunspot. And as I unlock new cards, I want to kind of tweak and make some different decks and different archetypes, but this is one that I found unique enough that I wanted to try out I climbed a little bit, but it's very back and forth. I was making some really big 8 cube games happen where they probably shouldn't have. Some of them I was able to pull out, some of them I wasn't. Overall, I think out of maybe 6 or 7 games, I climbed 1 tier, which is not great, but it's not bad either. It's not. I didn't lose. I didn't lose tiers, and I don't think I played this completely optimally. But overall, the premise is to just get value out of your 1-drop cards where you can, and then otherwise buff them up at the end with a Kazar. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into some of the gameplay. I hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, so we're starting just below 33, and the ranked season just restarted, so I haven't really grinded out and climbed. I'm just kind of testing out some different decks as I unlock different cards from Pool 2. But this one, especially when you get a Sunspot early, he's huge. The Crimson Cosmos is probably our worst location because I'm not able to change it with Scarlet Witch. I'm not really able to play anything besides my Kazar and Chavez. But we'll make do. But the Sunspot is a really huge card in this one warrior deck that comes from Pool 2, the second pool of cards, which enables us to efficiently use our energy. We don't have to worry about having energy left over at the end of the turn. So what I want to do with Sunspot is protect him. So typically in a deck that either looks like having armor, which will stop any card in that lane from being destroyed, or to protect it from Electro, what I want to do is to be able to place other cards around him, other 1-drop cards. That way, if an Electro is dropped, it's not going to be the only target that is potentially there. And I should have dropped the Mantis to grab that. And I'm seeing a lot of these like one-drop warrior decks. Oh, and this is the Atlantis, and so I don't think he's gonna stick with only having 1 card here. There's no way that he can sustain that. But I do think it was a good idea for him to move Nightcrawler over. I think I will follow suit, and I'm gonna drop a Mantis because I think he's gonna play something in this mid lane, and I'm gonna save the other 2 for our Sunspot. Deathlock's not a bad card. Not as good as, of course, your Novas, but it has pretty good utility. I like Carnage just a little bit better. It's a lower drop, and it gets a buff from destroying other minions. But Deathlock is a good second trigger. Let's go ahead and drop the Kazar in the far left lane since we have it available. And ours is going to be a little bit better than his just because he doesn't have as many 1-drops as we do. So I'm thinking that if he keeps Ant-Man as the only card in Atlantis, that we save Elektra until the very last turn and we drop it, because that'll clear the lane entirely. So I think what I'm gonna do is drop a couple cards in this middle lane. I'm not a huge fan of Hawkeye in a 1-drop deck. You have to trigger this additional ability just to have it kind of on par with your other 1-drops. It's just a slightly over, but it really telegraphs your next move for the enemy, or for the opponent, the opposing player. And so he snapped, which is odd to me, because he really doesn't have that great of a lead. Bucky, so is he planning on destroying his Deathlock? That seems like a wasted drop then. And so now the question is, do I go with the Chavez or do I go with the Electra? I think if I go with the Chavez, I still win that far right lane. I don't think I need to Electra it. And so I can go with Chavez in this lane to pull this one out. Because if I go with the Electra, it's not turning anything for me. Dropping the Chavez will at least turn this. That way he has to turn 2 of the remaining 3 to win. I'm going to go ahead and snap just to see if he's confident. Because right now we're just kind of messing around on the ladder. If we lose 8 cubes, we lose 8 cubes. But if we gain 8 cubes with a meme deck, then all the better. So he's gonna Carnage it, which is a waste of a Deathlock. It's an odd move. So his Ant-Man's not gonna get enough of a bonus to turn that location. Just an odd way to play that hand, and he may have top decked some of those cards, but overall, it seems like a weird way to play it. And so we did start out just a little bit under. Oh, why is that off by just a little bit? So it's off by about 5. So we started. We'll go off of this counter. We started just below 33 on our climb. So let's see how far we can get with a. It's more of a troll meme deck. It's not meant to be hugely powerful. It's meant to be more fun to play. You just swarm and overwhelm them with some low drop cards, and having such a limit on the number of higher drop cards that you have, you can pretty much guarantee that you're able to play Chavez each turn without really feeling like you're withholding other resources that you have. And so this is the Atlantis card again. It's a hot location with the release of this season. So it's a hot location. I think I'm gonna just throw Nightcrawler in a lane until we get a better idea of what we want to do with Atlantis, because that's a really good target for me for Chavez, so I can really cram these 4 lanes with a lot of minions, and then afterwards I can come back in with a Chavez. It's a 15 power drop. That's really hard to overcome for most average decks. If you have, of course, a dino deck or a buff deck, a collector, those are gonna most likely win that location. But for a collector, you'd have to drop it early. For a dino deck, you can probably get a pretty good feel of if that's what the deck is gonna be built around pretty early. So cards with no ability have +3 power. We don't have to worry about that. We are going to drop our Korg just to give him 1 additional card. So he does have Moon Girl, which he just duplicated his hand. So he may have a dinosaur. It's strange. It's strange that he didn't hold Nova to duplicate it. I think I'm gonna drop Electra here just to grab one of these cards while I can, and then I'm gonna let Sunspot kind of build up with the other 3 energy that we have left over for the turn. And so the Ant-Man's not gonna be able to trigger. Kazar is a pretty big drop here, which if you only have the mid-range, I'm curious why they didn't drop Kazar here if they're not gonna actually Carnage it. And so they're running out of time to Carnage it, and they don't really have a lot that's going to trigger off of that buff. And so since we're pushed in these lanes, I think they're going to try and overtake this middle lane. It's just a guess. And if I'm wrong, I'm at least still building power with my Sunspot with this 4 energy. So Sunspot being a huge card in this deck. It's just a huge pull from pull 2. I don't know that it's one of the highest competitive cards from Pool 2, but it definitely is fun to see it buffing up. I'm excited to be able to pull Collector. That one I think is going to be really fun. It's going to accompany a Dino deck really well, a Moon Girl deck. It's going to accompany those, and if we're able to pull it before, I'm going to go ahead and snap. If we're going to pull it, it may not have been the right call. Because if he pops Nova, that's going to be, he's going to win this lane, 1, 2. He's going to at least tie this lane. I may have lost. And if he pops Nova, I think I still win this lane with Chavez. But do I ever hold out and try and win this lane as well? So 8, if he doesn't drop anything else, I don't think I win this one. So if he is going to Nova it, this is the best call. If not, Scarlet Witch and actually. So let's do armor. We have priority. So we're going to drop armor. We're going to save 3 energy to buff Sunspot, but this armor is going to make it that even if he wants to destroy his Nova, he's not going to be able to. And then we're just going to throw an additional card. Which I'm not sure is necessarily needed. We probably could have left it as Atlantis. And so that's going to buff up his Kazar, but he's not going to be able to turn. Oh no, he's going to win that lane, isn't he? Oh no. Nope, okay. So, not sure why he dropped the second Carnage, but we would have been better off leaving this lane, in retrospect, as Atlantis and just dropping the armor. Because that would have given us an additional 5, knowing that he was going to try and pop a Carnage to eat the rest of the cards in that lane, and it'd be the solo card, so it would get the +5. Knowing that he was going to go with that, and we had priority for our armor, we should have withheld it. We got lucky. We honestly got very lucky here. But pulling his armor with Mantis was huge. We would have lost otherwise. We would have had to retreat. But that is two in a row that are 8 cube wins. Just because you have tiny little minions, tiny little cards. Most opponents are gonna be, they're gonna have a consistent enough deck that they. Why do you cry? They're gonna have a consistent enough deck that they're gonna feel pretty confident in their combos. So if you're able to sneakily disrupt those, you can pretty easily get an 8-card win, it looks like. Let's see if we're able to get into this game before we lose it. Okay, and so we are. And so when you play a card here, add a copy to another location. Do we go with an early Mantis? I don't really care to buff up or to duplicate the other ones. I do really. I would. No, I shouldn't have. Drawing a Sunspot here is going to be really big. Add a random card, which is Patriot. Ongoing. Your cards with no abilities have +2 power. Huh. I haven't seen this card before. It seems pretty average. Because there's not a lot of cards in the game that have no ability. And so it's all of your lanes combined. So if you have like a white tiger, you can get some utility. You have a squirrel girl to get some in other lanes. So we got their Carnage. So they did have a Carnage deck. Their Agent 13, which we don't have yet. Agent 13 I think would be a good addition, as well as Iceman, to this deck. They're both pretty decent 1-drop cards from Pool 2, which we just haven't got them yet. And our last location is Atlantis. So what we want to do is kind of hold out for Chavez there, unless we see a better path. And with Sinister London, it's going to make it hard to trigger Atlantis, honestly. I don't know that we're going to be able to do it, but I don't want to also commit too many resources here and not have that available. So if we pull a Kazar, duplicating a Kazar is going to be huge for us, because it's going to then give all of our cards +2. And they have a double dinosaur, which is unfortunate. It's going to be hard to overcome that in any location. So do we... I didn't get a sunspot, which is really unfortunate here. I think I've lost, honestly. I don't think there's a chance. I think I'm most likely going to have to retreat. But I don't know the best way. Like, I don't see an out. If I draw sunspot at this point, it's a little bit too late. If I change one of these locations, and then I draw a Kazar, it's not going to do us any good. I don't see a good out here. I'm just going to skip turn 4. Most likely we're going to retreat, but I do want to wait for just a second, see if maybe I potentially get an out. That looks good enough to try and stick this out. And he milled 2 of our cards. Most likely, he didn't even mill it. He drew them. He stole them. So most likely, that is a really good Electra. Being in Sinister London. And then our cord comes in. I'm going to go ahead and retreat just so that we can kind of refresh, and we take our 2 cube loss and we move on. A sunspot would have been huge there, because we could have really buffed him up in both locations. So then if we withhold 4 energy at the end of a turn, we're getting 8 power for that 4 energy. So it becomes really, really strategic to even hold cards that you maybe could have played or would have played otherwise, because you're buffing up so many. You're getting so much additional value just from not playing, them. And so let's see if we can do this one a little bit better. Sinister London again. I am gonna drop the Yondu right off the bat, just so that we can burn a couple of his cards, because that will duplicate him to another location. I'm gonna withhold. Oh no! that doesn't trigger Apocalypse's effect, does it? I don't think so. I think it has to be discarded from hand, and that wasn't discarded from his hand. And so I'm gonna follow up the Yondu play with a Korg. So being able to get 2, so we burned 2 of his cards, and now we're gonna replace those 2 with rocks. And I'm gonna withhold Electra just for a minute to see if we're able to maybe do the same thing the opponent did to us last turn, where they're going to get 2 1-drop destructions out of the 1 Electra. So if he plays another 1-drop and it goes here, then we're going to have 2 really good targets to be able to play that Electra off of. And so Ant-Man, we now have a 1-drop in each lane. He does have priority, so if he moves, this Nightcrawler could potentially mess us up. There's just so many. Oh my gosh. The lane's filled up so quickly. I may want to hold for a Kazar here, because he can't play anything here anymore. He only has 3 card slots to play. We have a lot of game left. We're halfway through. I'm going to skip this turn. A Deathlock to destroy. And that's going to destroy another lane as well. It's going to destroy this one. This one's still not locked in. He can move this Nightcrawler. This one is now locked in place, but it seems weird that he burnt all those resources just to drop a Deathlock to destroy it. Is this... We have one more turn to draw our Kazar. We have quite a few cards in which we still need to draw. I think I dropped the Sunspot and let him kind of buff up. Devil Dinosaur, that makes the fact that he spent all those other resources even stranger. If we draw Kazar here, I'll be a little sad. We drew a Kazar. Okay. So is it worth dropping those resources here? Because we would get. Yeah, I think it's worth it every time in this location. And then I think I'm just gonna withhold the rest of our energy to buff up Sunspot a little bit. And so either he got lucky with that discard. Oh, no, they were both rocks. Okay. So that is good to know that he doesn't really have any cards in his hand, so his Devil Dinosaur is really, really low. So even a Moon Girl, like, he doesn't have anything great, and he can only drop one more card. So we've already won this one, unless he gets super lucky with a draw. I think I'm just gonna drop. Oh, is it even worth dropping? So he's not going to play a card there, so we wouldn't trigger the Raccoon Rocket's ability. But if I play here, we're not going to buff up this lane. I think this one's locked in, and so I think it'd be worth dropping Chavez into the middle lane. So Mr. Fantastic will hit this up to 10. So it's a little bit closer than what I would have liked, but both of these were pretty close. But that's a 4 cube win. So we're climbing pretty well with the deck that's honestly not supposed to be good, but for some reason it performs fairly well. And I don't know if it's that you queue up into different MMR whenever you have different cards in your deck. So of course, if you have Nova, maybe it matches you against other, and you perform well with Nova in your deck, it matches you against other high MMR players. And so then whenever you have something like this, it doesn't know where to place you until you play a few games. I'm not sure exactly how the matchmaking here works, or if maybe because we're playing at an off hour, we're playing against more bots, which is most likely the case, is that we're playing against bots and we're just overthinking it. But let's go ahead and drop a Nightcrawler. I don't know if they're going to commit resources here. Not. They are not. Okay. And so they already have a card here. I'm going to go ahead and double down and hope that they play a card here so that I can draw something. The rest I'm going to withhold. And so we get a Deathlock from them, which is not a bad card. That's one of their 2 destruction mechanisms. Besides, of course, losing this lane. So do I like fully commit? I think I fully commit here, and try and burn their cards. If I lose this location, I concede. We concede and we move on. We take our 1 cube loss and we go. But otherwise, it puts us in a really good position. We'll have a Kazar out, so we get the buff. We'll be able to drop Chavez here on turn 6. Everything else will kind of fill up this next turn. We would drop an Ant-Man, Elektra, and whatever else we draw. He dropped a Kazar too. Wow. So we will go ahead and press that advantage. I think they will concede if they're a bot. If they're not, maybe they won't. But they should concede. And we have priority, turn priority, so we'll go first, but I am just going to go ahead and drop Elektra. It's not going to target anything, but we do get the +1 from Kazar here. Scarlet Witch is going to change the location, so we'll kind of see what it changes into. Oh no, so I'm not going to draw my I'm not gonna draw Chavez because we replaced it with District X. Oh. Okay, strange. I'm not running a Nova, but Nova's running me. So that's pretty good. I don't know what else they can do on turn 6 that's going to be huge. They did Moon Girl last turn, so maybe dropping a dinosaur somewhere. But that's not going to turn all of the lanes for them. And so this one, okay, yeah. That's probably the best top deck I could have gotten out of a District X was that Nova. After pulling the opponent's Deathlock. That would have buffed up all of these cards. It would have left one card here, so this would have been a 12 card lane, or a 12 power lane, which is just insane for 2 cards that didn't start in our deck. So definitely not a tier 1 deck, but definitely not a bad deck either, as you unlock some different tier 2 cards. It's kind of fun to play around with. There's a few more tier 1 drops that I can get that will make this just a little bit better. I would definitely take Hawkeye out, potentially Korg for, and maybe even potentially Yondu for a couple of other 1-drop cards. So Agent 13 would give us even more utility because it would draw a card back in. I think it's Freeze Man, which makes one of their cards cost 1 more, which is a good swing in our direction if it hits a high priority card and they're playing on curve. And then I think there's another one in pool 2 that would kind of buff or bonus or get some additional bonus from this deck. But I think this is a deck that I'll kind of play around with just whenever I'm wanting to have some fun, not necessarily when I'm looking to really consistently climb. But overall, it's a fun deck. We're still in open beta, so there's a lot of different meta changes going on and different cards being unlocked in the different pools. And it's fun to just experiment with those different cards and see what you can do. I really like being able to surprise the opponent. We're not playing just a copy-paste of the same deck, but playing variations and different cards and different strategies that make it really hard for them to play optimally. But otherwise, guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I will be back with more Marvel Snap content. As I continue unlocking cards from Pool 2, I'm going to experiment with different decks. So I definitely want to bring you a deck with the Collector in it once I unlock that card, and maybe some potential move decks, even though those are kind of mid-tier right now, just because they don't have all the tools that you need to be successful. They are kind of fun to play around with, and they have some pretty cool swing mechanics where you can get some really big cards into some locations that would surprise the opponent. And I think that's where I'm having the most fun, is being able to do things that the opponents are not anticipating, and being able to capitalize on that with 8 cube victories. But of course, that comes with a lot of 8 cube losses as well. But otherwise, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you stick around. Make sure you comment, you subscribe. If you are enjoying the content, stick around because there's going to be plenty more Marvel Snap content in the future. I hope you've enjoyed it. Later, guys.